Welcome to the third online lecture. This week I wanted to talk with you about cooperative and collaborative learning. So here goes. We place a big emphasis on collaborative work here at RMIT, to the extent that some of you might get a little bit sick of it, but there are good reasons why. So much research, and our practice should be based in good research, shows that students of all ages learn best when they learn with each other instead of against each other or apart from each other. So think about the sort of cooperative learning that we're modelling in the island investigation. Are your teams competing or are they collaborating and cooperating? There are lots of myths about collaborative learning in classrooms. Many teachers say, oh yes, we do cooperative learning or collaborative learning, but do they really? Young students, particularly very young students, have a tendency to work and play alongside each other rather than with each other. Groups in a class are not necessarily teams. They can just be random collections of students. For example, table groups. Working at a table is not necessarily collaborative or cooperative. They might be learning to share and take turns, but there's more to being a cooperative and collaborative group or team than just sitting in the same table. The other thing is that we can't assume that students of any age know how to work together. It's something that we need to explicitly teach. There's good theory that underlies the beliefs about cooperative and collaborative learning. Learning occurs socially. These sorts of ideas come from Lev Vygotsky. You should know about Vygotsky's zone of proximal development, but he's quite famous for things other than just the ZPD. He argued that knowledge is co-constructed. That means that we learn from each other. We test our understanding and can test our understanding when we talk and share our ideas or observe other people learning. So it's always constructed by those around us and mediated by what happens around it. So it's affected and influenced by the people and the things around us. There are 5 characteristics of cooperative learning that I think are worth stressing. The positive interdependency. When you're in a truly cooperative learning space, you feel responsible for your own and for others' learning. You have this sense of focus on a shared learning objective. When you're working in a table group, you don't have that responsibility. You're just sitting together. There's an accountability that you share as well. Everybody in that cooperative learning group should feel that high-quality work is important. That's something you might think about for your team contracts. In a good cooperative learning team, you promote each other's success and you build relationships with each other. You build a capacity also to work cooperatively into the future. So it's always about developing those teamwork skills of yours. And you should also be analysing, or as a team, analyse the effectiveness of how well you're achieving those sorts of goals. Collaborative learning shares some of the same characteristics, so that sense of shared responsibility for team success, that shared goal about what the team is intending to do, and that sense of community. The managing of your learning and how to give and receive feedback is also something that is important in collaborative learning. But collaborative learning turns the wick up a little bit, I guess. It is more than just dividing the tasks up and sharing out the roles and responsibilities. It's really a meeting of the minds. It's a critical sharing and reflection on our knowledge and how we might think. And it's contributing all the time, bringing your expertise, your perceptions to the team. Whereas sometimes in cooperative learning, you might have the common goal, but you might divide the tasks up. So you do this bit, I'll do this bit, Joe can do that bit. And that's not really collaborating, that's just sharing the tasks. Cooperating, but not collaborating. So have a little think about that distinction. And in these last few slides, down in red down the bottom, I've given you some further reading of some of the canons, the people who write and are cited most often in these sorts of areas. So David Boud, the Slavin, the Johnson brothers and Vygotsky. Read more about cooperative and collaborative learning by engaging with these readings. At this point, I want you to pause this video and go back to the Blackboard site and watch the first of the YouTube videos that I put up there, the Coca-Cola commercial, and think about, is this your experience of group work? Once you've watched that video, watch the next one, which is it's called episode 20, Group Projects. Think about whether you've had similar experiences to Jim Bob. Then come back and resume the lecture. So this week in your journal, you might reflect about why we place so much emphasis on teamwork. Think about whether your team is doing cooperative or collaborative learning. And talk to us about, or tell us, how you think you will use cooperative and collaborative learning in Richard Battersby's classroom. What sort of teams might you use? Will you choose ability-based groups or mixed ability groups, and why? Who chooses the group? You, or do you let the students choose? I want you to fill in a why chart now. What does good teamwork look like, feel like, and sound like? What would you like it to look like, feel like, and sound like in Richard's classroom? Has Richard's class done much cooperative learning already? Describe to Richard your goals about the cooperative and collaborative learning for his class in your proposal. Test those ideas in your reflection this week. Here's some things you might like to think about. Good team members display these sorts of characteristics. They're good listeners, but at the same time they're assertive. They don't just sit back and listen and expect everybody else to do the work. They put forward their contributors. And if they disagree, they're assertive, but in a way that is respectful. We use quiet voices in teamwork. We encourage each other and be kind. Good team members also take responsibility and be accountable. They offer ideas, getting back to that idea about being a contributor, not a passenger. You don't want to be the dead weight that Jim Bob talks about. Ask questions, take turns, don't talk over the top of each other. All those sorts of things. Here's your third YouTube video. This is a video by YouTube. I want you to watch this excerpt from a Big Bang episode and think about which of those characteristics of an effective team member applies to each of the four guys from Big Bang. How do you rate yourself as a team member? Think about the videos that you've just seen and the characteristics in one of the last slides, and rate yourself. Perhaps you could use something like this instrument here to think about whether you are an effective team member or not. Also, could be something to reflect on in your journal this week. What are your strengths and weaknesses in working in teams? What might you need to do differently? Would you use something like this particular instrument to explicitly teach Richard's children about working in teams? Working as a team. This slide's really talking about things that I'm pretty impressed with this year that you already seem to have a fairly good handle on from your work last semester or last year. A team contract is a really useful idea to get everybody in the team on the same page, to set out their goals, work out what they need to achieve, by when, who gets to do these things. It can help you break the tasks down into smaller chunks so that everything's more achievable. And it's really important to include how you expect the team to operate. What are the team values? How will you treat each other? What are the expectations? And important to talk about what the consequences will be if a team member doesn't deliver. Sometimes in schools we see these sorts of teams be developed, where there's these particular roles: the problem solver, the recorder, the reporter, the timekeeper, the gopher, the encourager, the observer, the organiser. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different roles. Think about whether you would actually have a team of 8 children or a team of 8 people working on a particular assignment or project. Think about how manageable that might be. But at the same time, think about some of these roles. They're actually important roles for somebody to play within a team. Now, in a team explicit teaching situation, you might deliberately allocate these roles. Think about the sorts of roles that people take on naturally within your team. Who's doing these things naturally? Do you need to think about being a bit more explicit about these sorts of roles to ensure that your team is doing the best work that it can? So, in your reflection again, you could think about these sorts of ideas. How much teamwork do you think that you might need to explicitly teach in Richard's classroom? What about in other classrooms? What happens when things go wrong? I try to operate by this particular saying by a guy called Stephen Covey, who wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. One of his tenets is to first seek to understand, then be understood. It's always useful in a conflict situation to try and understand the other person's perspective. You don't have to agree with it, but it really, really helps in your negotiation if you understand it. So find out first what their beef is, what their problem is, then put your position. It'll be a stronger outcome. And conflict resolution strategies. These are really important. Listen to that alternative viewpoint. First seek to understand. Practice empathy. Try to understand their point of view. Give everybody a voice. Remember to use your quiet voices. Brainstorm possible solutions that aim for a win-win solution, not if somebody loses out. So that means you need to negotiate a compromise. And put the needs of the team first, not your own needs. As part of a team, it's the team's goals and the team's needs that are first. One of the things for the quieter people, the quieter team members, don't just accept and accommodate everybody else's beef just to keep harmony. You need to assert your position and assert your beliefs and try and compromise. Revisit what the team contract says about your conflict resolution strategy. So now we've talked a fair bit about teams. What are your own goals for being a better team member? Be a little bit reflective. Pause here again and write down 3 things that you could do to improve your own teamwork. And just to check in, see how many of these you've added to your list of 3. Add some more if you want to. Well, that's it for this week's online lecture. The next lecture will be focused on assessment in integrated studies. How do we assess learning when we're doing so many different things? How do we use assessment in our planning of our curriculum? See you online then.